The Texas lawmakers make it to D.C. They host their own press conference. And during their press conference, they actually break out into song.
We want to be standing there when a new Voting Rights Act for this century is there, and the rights that were struggled, that so many lives were taken, so much courage was demonstrated, are preserved once again. I turn it back over to you for the questions, and thank you very much for all that you and all of your colleagues are doing here today.
Thank you.
We will overcome. We will overcome. We will overcome someday. Deep in our heart, I do believe we will overcome someday.
I cannot take any more of the boomer LARPing. This is what's going on now is in the 1960s, you had a very consequential social movement called the Civil Rights Movement. And it changed the way voting took place, and it changed a lot of the country. And today, all of these, it's as though time froze in 1965. It's as that everyone is just play acting what happened in 1965. And so they're trying to compare this effort to break the law in Texas to stymie election integrity reforms to the 1960s civil rights movement or some other really consequential movement. Don't forget, these voting laws that are going on around the country, in many instances, are just restoring protections that we had 2 years ago. They're not even, we had election integrity measures. Then last year, the liberal establishment got rid of all of them, and not all of them, but a great deal of them. And in some cases, explicitly violated the state constitution on the way elections are supposed to be conducted, notably in Pennsylvania. And now we're told that if you ever restore any of those things again, those provisions that we had in place 18 months ago, if you ever do that's basically Jim Crow, it's slavery, it's racist, it's just so preposterous. Not just these silly Texas Democrats, Kamala Harris defending them.
I do want to first start by making a statement about the legislators in Texas who are showing extraordinary courage and commitment. I met with them when many of them traveled to Washington, D.C. We sat down and had an extensive conversation in the Roosevelt Room in the White House. And I applaud them standing for the rights of all Americans and all Texans to express their voice through their vote, unencumbered. I will say that they are leaders who are marching in the path that so many others before did when they fought and many died for our right to vote.
So what Kamala Harris is saying is that if you have to show an ID to vote, this is a measure supported by a huge number of people, including by a number of polls, the majority of black people. This has become a racialized issue, but even the majority of black people, according to many polls, support these sorts of things. Then you're disenfranchising people. You're disenfranchising illegal aliens. You're disenfranchising political hacks. You're disenfranchising people who shouldn't be voting. That's what you're doing here. And she's saying that she applauds these Texas lawmakers. Make no mistake, the Texas lawmakers are subverting democracy, not just because they're trying to get rid of election integrity measures, but because they're violating the law. The people of Texas elected their representatives, their legislators. The legislators are now pursuing their legislative agenda. The Democrats, because there's no legal way for them to stop this, just flee the state, which is against the law, and by the way, which is going to result in their being arrested. So Governor Abbott came out. He was not having anything to do with this. He said that they're in violation of the law. The minute they land back in Texas, they'll be arrested. They'll be brought back to the Capitol. But that actually probably won't even be necessary now because a few Democrats were pried off. They've now voted with the Republicans. They couldn't withstand the public pressure to do so, and the election integrity measures will be restored. At the total disadvantage to all these Democrats, all of these Democrats are desperately trying to prevent these kinds of measures, not just in Texas, but everywhere. Why? What are they so afraid of? Why are Democrats so insistent on making permanent the corrupt election practices that came up during the 2020 COVID lockdowns? This isn't just happening at the state level. This isn't just happening in Kamala Harris's press conferences. This is becoming a priority of the Biden administration. Psst! Hey, you! We're not allowed to talk so much on YouTube anymore. They don't like some of the things we say. So you got to make sure that you ring that bell and you subscribe. Because sometimes people do that, but they still don't get the notification. So make sure you do that. Head on over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, wherever you get your audio podcasts. You can subscribe to The Michael Knowles Show. And you can order right now my book, the #1 national best-selling, non-New York Times listed, because they're a bunch of jerks, Speechless, Controlling Words, Controlling Minds. We'll see you next time.